Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jean Lapierre, and I just want to remind everybody that if you have any questions, there's an icon. Oh, 1 second. Oh. So on the upper right screen, you have the Q&A. So if you click on that button, you'll be able to input your questions there. Today, I just wanted to present to you Geeta Nurlela. A bit of her background. She's from the University of New Brunswick. She started working in Ottawa in 1995 at the NRC, or the National Research Council, and then also did her master's program at the University of Ottawa, getting her master's in science and engineering diploma in 97. Worked for Newbridge Networks as a software engineer, and in 2008 became the RCMP, wearing multiple hats. Business analyst, quality assurance, project lead and relationship, and IT portfolio manager for various projects. And in 2018, transferred to the TBS, the Treasury Board of Canada Secretariat, to establish the GC enterprise architecture for the Government of Canada. And I'll hand it all over to you. Yeah.
Thank you very much, John, for the wonderful opportunity and a nice introduction. Bonjour à tous. For the public servants here, I would like to say Happy National Public Service Week. Don't know how your department celebrates the National Public Service Week. In TBS, we celebrate it by wearing a different color for each day. And today is dedicated for the color blue. That's why you see me in the kind of bluish attire. So going back to the topic, when we're talking about enterprise architecture, it may have a different meaning for different countries. For us in Canada, at least for the GC Enterprise Architecture team anyway, enterprise architecture is a conceptual blueprint that defines both the structure and the operation of an organization. So it's giving deep consideration to the 5 layers of the architecture, namely business, information or data, application, technology, and security. All this is to support the strategic outcome of the work that we're doing. As you can see from the slide here, we identify the importance of each of the architecture layer. For example, in the business architecture, we are creating a whole of government approach driven by user and stakeholder needs. So in here, IT is a tool to deliver a cohesive digital user experience. Very often we try to get a service for, let's say, filing out our income tax. So we go to a CRA portal, give our credential, and start the process of filling out an income tax. When we traverse all the boxes that we need to fill out for the numbers that we have to fill out, we just remember that we took parental leave last year. That involves employment insurance, but we forgot what's the exact amount of the EI that we receive. So we try to go to the ESDC website and we try to collect that information. But lo and behold, we again have to do a login and give our credential so that we can give the information we need to continue completing the income tax. Now, if we truly treat the GC service as one government service, users should not have to log in multiple times to multiple departments to be able to get the service we need. Just keep at the previous slide, Jean. So another example, in the information architecture, we aim to facilitate effective data sharing and information across the government using federal and international standards. From my own experience working with the GC departments, data sharing is a bit of a hairy subject. Many departments prefer not to share their data in fear of contravening policy or legal implication. However, we can't really act as the one government if we can't have access to the information we need to do the work. So instead of taking the easy path and avoid the problem like a plague, we should embrace it and find a good solution that can satisfy all the requirements. So traversing down the application architecture, we aim to focus our effort in digitizing business service. As technology evolves, we must stay current and relevant to Canadians and delivering service that make it easy for them to use, while robust enough to provide the best performance. This ties into the technology layer of the architecture as an enabler of high availability of the service we provide. All of this, we need to have security being embedded in all the service that we're offering to ensure trust. We have to make sure that security is being thought of from the get-go, not an afterthought, so we can create a secure service while maintaining user-friendliness. So from this picture, you see there are two important drivers in the architecture. They are internal drivers, such as policy, strategies, mandates, requirements to make everything digital, and technical debt. There are also external drivers, such as technology, regulatory, cyber threats, economy, and global competition. These two drivers go in complementary directions, like yin and yang. For example, the digital service modernization, which is internal, drives the new technology adoption, which is external. Now, while the technology, which is external, enables secure digital service and reduction of technical debt, which is internal. Now that we have the overview of the enterprise architecture, let's see the policy requirements that can support this work. Next page. Thank you. So within the federal government, we actually have two policies that help establish the need of an enterprise architecture. The first one is the policy on service and digital. As you can see in the text here, in this policy, the Chief Information Officer of Canada is responsible for prescribing expectations with regard to enterprise architecture, establishing and chairing an enterprise architecture review board that is mandated to define current and target architecture standards for the Government of Canada and review departmental proposal for alignment. The second policy on the right is the Directive on Service and Digital. In this policy, it says the departmental Chief Information Officer is responsible for chairing a departmental architecture review board that is mandated to review and approve the architecture of all departmental digital initiatives and ensure the alignment with enterprise architecture. And then submitting to the Government of Canada Enterprise Architecture Review Board proposals concerned with the design, development, installation, and implementation of digital initiatives that exceed certain investment and OPMC threshold, involve emerging technologies, require an exception, have a deployment model other than public cloud, and are directed by the CIO of Canada. Now, we have seen the definition of EA, the policy that supported. We come to the point on how we can support this policy. That's where we come to play. So TBS has created a group called the GC Enterprise Architecture. That's our team. We are mandated to define current architecture and develop target architecture standard. While we are doing our work, we realize that this is a big task. We cannot do it alone. In order to properly do this work, to properly establish a good target architecture that everyone can use, we need everyone's help. Thus, our role evolves from just developing target architecture standard across the bias, the business, information, application, technology, and security. We also need to provide good guidance to department in their implementation that align to the enterprise architecture framework. So how do we achieve this? How do we develop a good target architecture? And how do we create a good framework that we can use in reviewing the digital initiatives? We know there are talents within the department that can work with us to help develop these. Thus, we create an engagement forum with all these department talents and experts through working groups to create networks of expertise. Through these working groups, we develop good framework and share best practices. Last but not least, is how we can influence the Government of Canada to adopt these wonderful work we did without impeding their projects. We know departments are very busy achieving their mandates. That's why they're trying their best to develop a good solution. However, sometimes these solutions are a bit outdated or a bit siloed in nature. To avoid having this problem, we do early engagement with departments. This ensures that we can influence their selection of an IT solution early on. That way, when departments are ready to come to GCRB, we already have a long conversation and discussion with them to ensure the best possible solution for the whole GC is attained. For this, we are supported by our extended EA team, which comprise of SSC Enterprise Architecture, Cybersecurity, CCCS, TBS Cybers, and Departmental Architects. So now we're going back to the key piece of the enterprise architecture, the GC Enterprise Architecture Framework. Next page. So this framework is the criteria that EARB uses to ensure departmental alignment to GC direction with respect to IT implementation. In building this framework, we're not alone. We brought together experts from various departments to sit down together and come up with this wonderful framework. It takes months and many meetings working with TBS experts and departmental experts to come up with this element. Let's look at the pieces. So in business architecture, there's a component. The first one says, design service digitally from end to end to meet Government of Canada users and other stakeholders' need. In here, we're emphasizing the needs of users and stakeholder needs. We don't need to create overcomplicated system to do this to show we are experts. It's the other way around. We serve our users, our citizens. Then it should be about them, not about us. We need to simplify our service to make it easy for our users to use it. It's as simple as that. The second element, architect to be outcome-driven and strategically aligned to the department and to the Government of Canada. So we want to make sure the department's not architecting something just for the sake of creating an architecture. This has to tie into the outcome that they want to perceive, what exactly they're trying to achieve, what problem they're trying to address. This has to be really clarified to make sure that we're not doing something just for the sake of doing it or to keep our job. No, this has to be tied into some deliverables for the department itself. And then the next element says, promote horizontal enablement of the enterprise. So the purpose of this point is actually to make sure that we don't reinventing the wheel. If one department already addressed the same problem in certain ways, and actually is a good way to do it, why don't we learn from it? We can also learn, have a lesson learned from that department. What works, what doesn't work. So we don't have to go through the same experience, duplicating the same effort and come up with the same solution. Like why do you want to do that, right? So is very good to actually have a horizontal enablement for the enterprise. In terms of information architecture, we want to make sure that the department collect data to address the needs of users and other stakeholders. More often than not, what we found through evaluation of departmental EARB submission, we saw that department will collect this data, that data, and other data. And at the end, what they need is only one piece of data. Like, why do you bother collecting all this data that you don't need? Just simplify the implementation, collect only data that you need to be able to provide the service. You don't need to collect all the data. The second one is manage and reuse data strategically and responsibly. So in this is the effort to try to create partnership with departments. So you don't just manage the data for yourself, but for the other department that you're going to share data with. For example, if a criminal who were imprisoned in CSC and they are having, they escape from prison. This data needs to be shared with the RCMP, for example, the enforcement agency, to be able to capture the criminal. Without being able to share this data, there's no way we're going to be able to effectively do our job and actually capture the criminal and put it back to the prison, right? So that's one of the example. The third bullet is use and share data openly in ethical and secure manner. So this is a matter of actually share data that is ethical and secure. You can't just share data just for the sake of sharing data without thinking of security behind it. We as the Government of Canada is responsible to make sure that the data we collect, we actually safeguard it so that it doesn't provide a negative implication to the citizen. And the fourth bullet in the information architecture says, design with privacy in mind for the collection, use, and management of personal information. So in this case, we have to make sure this is when we create or we implement a solution, we have to have it privacy by design to make sure that the collection, the use, and management of personal information is done appropriately. If we go to the application architecture, the first bullet we have is use open source solution hosted in public cloud. We know there's a lot of effort has been done by other people from different countries even to verify that the solution being used is actually bulletproof in terms of security, in terms of robustness. So if there's an opportunity to actually use open source solution, by all means, please use them. And don't forget to give back to the community. If you create something that can be useful by other departments, please share them. The next one is to use software as a service hosted in public cloud. So as we are trying to incite departments to be able to use cloud, we want to make sure that we're not going back to the same trap where the department really customize their solution to the point that when it comes for them to actually update the solution, it is really hard to update them to upgrade to the next version because it's too customized. So we are trying to go back to basic. We use software as a service, not customized version of solution, but software as a service. That way you can actually make use of all the functionality that's available in public cloud without having to be wary about upgrading to the next version. And the third bullet, I think is also an important bullet, is design for interoperability. This is very important because you need to be able to share data with other departmental partners that would need the data to be able to do their job. So instead of getting the data from the citizen multiple times by multiple portals, if you could just make use of the data that's already pre-existing with one department and be able to share it and collaborate, it will be better to achieve a result that is more optimized and efficient. In terms of technology architecture, we want to make sure that the departmental use cloud first. Why? Because technology evolves very rapidly. So in order for them to be able to tap into this latest and greatest technology and functionality, just use cloud. The next point is design for performance, availability, and scalability. So often, more often than not, there are some technology out there or some vendors out there that really likes to outshine everybody else by showing this nice design, but in terms of when you look at under the hood, you found out that it's not really scalable. It's not really easily available. So in that case, you really need to think about whether the solution that you're going to be providing, whether the solution that you're going to be implementing is really good in terms of scalability, not just when in the phase of proof of concept where you actually do like very limited scope, everything works well, and when it comes to actually deploying in the real world, everything falls apart, right? So we have to make sure that this is really being thought for. And the next point is follow DevSecOps principle. This is by design, we have to make sure that the development of or implementation of any solution, make sure that we have security and operations in mind. In terms of security architecture, the first point that we have is build security into the system lifecycle across all architecture layers. So we want to make sure that when you're creating a solution, when you're implementing a solution, you have to make sure that you identify the category of information, whether it's protected A, protected B, or unclassified. By identifying those categories first, then you can make sure that you're going to be thinking about the security that you need to put in place when you're implementing the solution. The next point is ensure secure access to systems and service. So when we're building a solution, because we're going to be holding public data, I mean, our citizens' data, then we need to safeguard from potential threats. We need to make sure that the access to our system are secured. and the service that we provide is also secured. That way we can make sure that the data we collect will also be secured. Same thing with the maintain secure operations. So just bear in mind, whatever you design the system, go through a different angles, all the different aspects needs to be thought of, make sure that the solution that you're going to be providing is secured. So if you go to the next page. Yeah. Okay. Solve the problem. Okay, service and digital target state enterprise architecture. So in this is the service and digital target enterprise architecture that we have created by collaborating with different departmental experts. The whole purpose of this is to promote a whole of government approach again and a cohesive user experience. So if you see the first layer, we see there's a business programs and service. What exactly is the department or the government trying to provide? What service? So you see here, there's like another example is pension. So we have pensions, or we have employment insurance, we have old age security, licensing, payments, grant and contribution, tax filing, and there's also the back office programs such as core finance, security screening, next gen HR and pay, enterprise procurement, and cloud brokering service. And then underneath it, we tie in the business capabilities that associated with the service we're trying to provide. For example, there's legislation, regulation, and policy management. There's also enterprise planning. There's outcome management. There's relationship management, compliance management, program and service delivery, information management, government resources management, as well as corporate management. So after we define the program and service, and then we define the capabilities that will support this service, we go back to the stakeholders. Who are our stakeholders? You define the citizens. There's also businesses. There's international stakeholders. There's partnership. And then there's employees, delegates, and elected officials. So for all this, we have to think, how will they be able to access our service? That's when the identity management comes. They sign in Canada, GC Pass, and other ways to access the service. Then we have to also think about the channels and interface we're trying to do. So we're trying to create a one GC platform to provide a tell us once experience. You don't want the citizen to keep having to log in multiple departments, multiple ways. We want, like, the end goal is to create a service where the citizen can just log in once and they don't have to worry about everything else. And whenever they want to navigate from one department to another, they don't have to keep relogging and provide their password. This is actually going to create a better security for their data as well. I know it's maybe a long journey to achieve, but this is what we aim for, and this is what we're working for. There's also different channels like omni-channels, and there's also digital workspace like GC Exchange and GC Tools to be able to share our experience and lesson learned. Now, all this is tied into our business architecture layer, where we think about our stakeholders, we think about the capabilities, and we think about the service that we are going to provide. In the information architecture layer, we're trying to think about the data portion of it, where there's master data management, collection, reuse, and sharing. There's also the fact that we probably need some kind of an API store where departments can actually post their APIs in order for other departments to access the data they may need. There's also the event broker and bulk data processing. In the application architecture, we have this different kind of cloud offerings, the SaaS, the PaaS, the IaaS that departmental can use. But of course, everything else have to be tied into what exactly they're trying to, what problem they're trying to address, and to make sure that however they implement it, it will actually align with the GC direction. So we can go to the next one. This page is just to show the milestone what we achieved using this GC Enterprise Architecture Review Board. We've come to see so many different submissions, and we want to highlight the actual key deliverables that we've seen so far. So the GC EARB is actually launched first on March 17, 2017. And then there's a lot of meetings happening after that comprise with several agendas. So I can just try to highlight in July 2017, for example, we created this GC business capability model, which we use actually as a part of elements for evaluating TBS. I mean, evaluating submission that comes to GCRB. In December 2017, we have this TBS1 GC vision and way forward. We're trying to figure out how to create a solution that promotes this vision. February 2018, we have created a TBS cloud reference architecture. This is where the department will be able to compare what cloud architecture will work better for their solution. In April 2018, we have this TBS Sign in Canada concept. So this is where it's actually getting birth for creating one way for logging into getting all different services of the government. In June 2018, we also have this SSC network reference architecture, which provides to the other departments that will be using SSC service how to be able to use their network and what are the implications of using certain components of the network. In December 2018, we have the digital standards and mandatory procedure for EA assessment, which is actually the first version of the EA framework. In April 2019, we have endorsed the GC API standards and the GC API stores. This is where the departments can actually look at what other departments' API to be able to collect the data that they need. In June 2019, there is a SSC TBS mainframe strategy. So what we do with the mainframe that we have used for several decades and how we're going to be able to optimize it along with others solution that we have. So these are the examples of the milestone that we have for the GCRB, and we can go to the next page. So putting it all together, what are our enterprise architecture points of influence? So if you see the different bars here, there's different aspect of when a project or an initiative come to GCRB or come to TBS for funding support or anything like that. There's memorandum to cabinet, there's concept case, there's GCRB directive, and there's TB submission, and then there's also project oversight. So we try to identify this as different theme. For example, the memorandum to cabinet is for direction. For a concept case, which is a business problem and where ideation is occurring. GCRB is where the design is happening. TB submission is with TB authorities, and project oversight is during the execution of the project itself. So throughout this different facets of the initiatives of the project, enterprise architecture team actually do ongoing guidance, strategic advice, and support. We have been consulted in many different by many different teams in TBS to go through the different submissions that we received, and we're trying to provide the best possible advice to each of the facets. So of course, the different facet requires different questions. For example, the memorandum to cabinet. What decision is being sought from the cabinet? What is the problem to be solved? For concepts case, for example, has the problem or opportunity being well defined? More often than not, the department doesn't really understand the problem. So instead of going through like really identify the problem and figure out how to resolve it, they come directly to solution. So this is not what we want. We want to make sure the problem or opportunity that they're trying to get at is really well defined. That way the implementation will be even more clear at the end. And in terms of GCRB, of course, we evaluate all the submission to the GCRB to make sure they're aligned to the EA framework. And whether or not we're also trying to identify whether or not they're defining a new target architecture. Because the talent is not just from TBS alone. The department also have talent. So maybe they have a better solution to resolve a certain question or a certain problem. And we're trying to gain from that. If the departmental solution is actually better than what we have provided as a guidance, why not take them and try to update our guidance to make sure that it actually reflects the new solution that is being proposed. And for the TB submission, the question that we have is, does the initiative or project comply with TB policies? Is it aligned with the GC strategies? And most important question, has the project been to GCRB? Because if they have not been to GCRB and they go to TB submission, they skip a step where they actually missed opportunity to obtain a good guidance, missed opportunity to be able to discuss the solution to get a better approach, better solution that can actually address their problem or question. And in the project oversight, although we're not really involved a lot in this, but if there's any question for any kind of project that is en route, we always try to provide our guidance as well as we could. Is the project positioned for success? Is there any course correction needed? And if they do want to get our feedback in terms of solution and how things may go wrong or have not gone wrong, or whether or not there's a better solution to do it, we'll be happy to actually provide that guidance. So the next page is just to show the Government of Canada Business Capability Model that we have been collaborated. So this business capability model have actually been evolving. Right now we are at the version 2.0. There was a talk about doing some research with Gardner and Infotech, the leader of researchers, to be able to evolve it. But for now, until we get sufficient resources, this is the official business capability model that we use for GC Enterprise Architecture Review Board evaluation. So that's it from now. If you go to the next page, there are all the references that you may be able to get from. If there is any question that I can answer, I'll be glad to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Geeta. That was a great presentation, going through everything, I guess the whole history of the EA program of the Government of Canada. Right now, I don't see any questions that have popped up. So again, to remind everybody that if you click on the Q&A button on the upper right, you can pose a question for
either my presentation is very boring or is very, fully understood by people.
Oh, I think that there's a lot of people on the call who are, I guess, from the enterprise community as well. So I guess maybe what we could talk a little bit about is what you guys might be working on today, and what you're thinking about doing, I guess, over the next this fiscal year, and maybe even talking about what strategic things are further down the road and that you're also looking at doing.
So as I may have hinted in the previous slide, so we are actually working with two different research companies, Gardner's and Infotech, to be able to foresee how we can evolve this business capability model to better support our work in the government. So we have bring this the result for that in our enterprise architecture community of practice and get the response from everybody. But until we get properly resourced for it, we won't be able to move forward with it. But again, like this is still in the very early stage. So we'll see what happens. Another work that we're actually trying to do, as we see different submission that comes to GCEARB, we're trying to pick the best, exemplar, if you may say, of how one department may be able to address certain things, or if there's any common problems experienced by departments, that we can probably come up with like different scenarios and how to address each of those scenarios. So for example, there's a talk about how to use M365 as the information management repository rather than using GC Docs, or how does the M365 and GC Docs may be able to collaborate together. So we have 4 or 5 different departments that come and present their different views on how to solve that problem and how to get around with working with their daily lives using whatever tools they can get. So we have accumulated those, and we have started to create different scenarios on how department can make use of those solutions that these departments have provided. So that's one of the idea of doing it. So hopefully by doing it, departments doesn't have to reinvent the wheel, and they just need to take this template and, oh, I'm in this scenario. No, I'm in that scenario, and use that and just use it for their solution instead of trying to figure out how this one works, how that one works. And they can see the different examples from the other departments, how they do it, and what makes them a success, rather than trying to recreate the same solution.
Okay, we're starting to get some questions in the Q&A. First question we have here are all of the GCEARB submissions published for employees to see?
So to answer that question, I'm not sure about being public, but I know they are available in GC Connects, because there are some decks that are actually protected B, because it has all these architecture diagram and how the network are connected within each other. That would be a little bit of too rushed to actually publish it to the public, but there are other aspects of it that actually published in the, for example, open government, in terms of different approach, or different, if there's like a data standards that other departments can use or other countries can use, they're all going to be published in the open government portal.
Thanks for that. I have another question here. It's sure. About other policies that TBS might have that might affect EA. So here we have the question. Have there been any recent high-level changes in TBS EA policy that the departmental EA team should be aware of? For example, we're moving or migrating from a must-use cloud position to a try to use cloud first, but ultimately do what makes sense. I think as well, I've heard of the phrasing used as being the right cloud.
Okay, so just to bear in mind that whatever we're trying to publish from TBS, at least from our group, is try to create a betterment for the departments. So if there is any exception or exemption that department feel is necessary, we're not gonna say no, right? This is, department is responsible for delivering their own mandates. Our job is just to make sure the solution they obtain is the best solution. So it doesn't matter whether the EA framework says, oh, you use cloud first. That actually is created to entice the department not to just sit in the same behavior as they always do. Like, open up your mind. There's other things out there that may be useful. But if the department's already considered that and decide that this is the best way for us to go, we just help them position their strategies so that they can best achieve their results. So for now, I haven't seen anything that would change or impact the work for enterprise architecture. But if there is any change, we will surely notify at least our working group in the enterprise architecture community of practice, just so that people are aware and be able to align with that.
Okay, great. I guess I don't see any other questions right now. So I guess we could close out the session. Yeah, you're muted right now, Gita. Just to let you know.
Okay, awesome. Yeah.
No, so it's okay. We can do a gallery so that we're both visible here. Yeah, I just want to thank you again for coming to present to this conference to sort of help everyone, I guess, from around the world understand what's going on in the Government of Canada for enterprise architecture. All right. Well, thanks very much.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Greatly appreciate it. And see you next time.
Yeah, we'll be seeing you shortly. Take care. Bye.